Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk about how we can use a strong sense of curiosity to get away from being too hard on ourselves. If you're someone who's really hard on yourself, odds are it's because you see potential in you and you want to be better. And I think that in order to make sure that who you are has a chance to flourish and to manifest, you have to be patient with yourself. And I think that the posture of curiosity, which is one of exploration and questioning, is naturally a posture that waits for the good things to rise to the surface without being so quick to get rid of and blame the things that we're not so proud of. I think that we have to be curious instead of critical. As an example, I'm typically someone who struggles with maybe thinking too much about the same thing. And when I catch myself doing that throughout the day, my natural tendency is to be frustrated and agitated about the fact that I'm meditating on the same thing over and over again. But instead of being agitated and letting myself be angry with the thoughts that I have in my mind, it's better that I slow down and ask myself a few questions. One question that I might ask myself in a moment when I feel like I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing is, what does this say about who I am as a person? Maybe the fact that I think about a lot of the same things over and over can show me what I really care about. Maybe the fact that I think a lot about the same things is insight into the fact that I have very few things that I care very strongly about. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I sort of throw everything out with my anger and sort of define everything as bad within that one experience, I miss out on the opportunity to investigate all of the parts closely enough to appreciate something that really stands out about who I am as a good person. Now, this is why I think that if we can dedicate ourselves to being observant of who and what we are, we can come away with the things that we want to manifest and nurture in our lives most. And I think that that takes a certain kind of grace extended from ourselves to ourselves. I think that the task of becoming a better person should be one of exploration and deep appreciation as opposed to some utilitarian agenda. I think often we want to hurry and be an ideal type of person so that we can be safe and gain the affections of others. It can feel like the quicker that we become a better person, the quicker we gain the love and affection that we ultimately desire. I think that anything that grows needs to be secure, needs a strong sense of safety. And the same is true of yourself. The full range and scope of your potential is not something that you can coax forward by intimidation. A lot of times I think that we stunt our growth because we're demanding it instead of being curious about how it's going to take place in our lives. Whenever you treat yourself with curiosity, you cultivate a sense of safety within yourself that lets who you are know that there is so much room for you to grow and to develop without the demands and pressure of things happening quickly. And there are a couple ways that I want to suggest we can make this a habit. If you're not someone who journals, I highly encourage that in general, and what I'm going to propose does require some journaling. This is a practice that I have found to be incredibly helpful and I think will benefit you as well. So the first way that you can journal is by writing down your day in a very objective and observing way. Whenever you do this, make sure to include all kinds of details, even if they seem mundane or irrelevant. The idea here is to be non-judgmental and to be strictly objective about things that happen in your mind, in your emotions, your reactions, your circumstances, your context, the people, relationships, and conversations you've had throughout the day. And the ultimate goal of this exercise is to get you to start being an observer of your life. And when you narrate your day like this, what you're really doing is helping yourself become an explorer. You're putting yourself in the position of an analyst, someone who's not so much invested in finding anything in particular, but more so just curious. I find that the more that I actually do this, the less threatened that I feel whenever I'm doing something in the day that I'm not proud of. Whenever I'm, like I said, thinking too much about the same thing, or maybe even thinking thoughts that are based on my fears about about what other people think of me, or maybe anticipation for how someone might be offended by me in some way. All of these thoughts can be really discouraging, and my ultimate goal is to have peace of mind and to be able to think about myself and the people around me as safe and loving. But in order to get to that goal, I have to be able to foster a strong sense of curiosity so that I can be safe enough to realize that what's in that isn't all bad, but in fact, inside of the things that I'm often discouraged by are tools to help me actually be better. So for example, in this process, I've come to learn a lot about how I think. Often I'm imagining conversations in one way or another. Sometimes I'm imagining a conversation that actually did happen, but I'm revising how it happened and implementing more fear or anxiety. And sometimes I'm anticipating a conversation that will go in a way that I don't want it to go. Obviously, this is not the ideal thought pattern to carry in your mind throughout the day, but instead of being frustrated and resenting myself for even having these kind of thoughts, in order for me to pause and realize that this is happening, I cultivate a new sense of knowledge about who I am and how I think. So from that, I've actually garnished that how I think is very conversational. And I think that that really is just a testament to who I am as a relational person. So now what I've actually started to do is to make up conversations that go well in my journal. I've actually started to imagine conversations that maybe I typically imagine throughout the day, but make sure that they are positive and make sure that they're conversations that happen in a way that assume that I'm safe and assume that the person I'm talking with cares about me, sees me fully, and is not going to hurt me or be offended by me in any way. And so along with this process, I would also encourage that there be some kind of weekly habit of going back through this journaling process, because this is when you can be judgmental and you can actually find things about yourself that you want to see change, but you're not doing it in a critical way. You're just finding the resources that you need in order to be able to intentionally improve your character. So for example, in order for me to even start the process of writing out conversations, like I said, when I imagine positive conversations, I had to have some knowledge, I had to have some awareness that that's how my mind works. And I had to be able to get into that knowledge in a way that was not critical, but strictly informative and analytical. So now I have the power to use what I know about myself to help myself out, essentially, instead of just being agitated when the moment strikes that I'm having all of these reoccurring thoughts that I'd rather not have. I want to end this video by saying that if you're someone who puts too much pressure on yourself or is too hard on yourself, be also curious about where those pressures and expectations come from. A lot of where we are trying to get as people is often influenced by voices that are not organic and they're not internal. But we deserve to be guided by a compass that's internal, something that will push us to a direction that leads to a self that's authentic and comes from a kind of goodness that's specific to our nature. So I hope that this video has been encouraging. I hope that you all adopt a posture of curiosity and do away with the criticism and self-judgment, because that's what you deserve.